Don't turn up your rodeo.
The audience is now deaf.
Hi, I'm sitting on the floor because the school board doesn't go any higher. Welcome to Doctor Who Exactly, which is me talking to a camera. Yeah, this aired in 2014 and it was met with a general... What was that? I must admit, I was in the camp of people who did not like this episode. I did not think it was a bad episode, I just didn't like it. This rewatch has given me, how to put this kindly, a newfound appreciation. I see what people see in this episode. It's a great character piece. It shows insights of the Doctor, and you know, it does a little bit of a retcon, but you can't have a show that runs over 50 years and not retcon something at one point. And yeah, we get a character drama between Clara and Danny Pink about their dating life. One being an ex-soldier veteran dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and the other one with Clara being a time traveller and her life with the Doctor being absolutely mental. Like I said, a newfound appreciation. I still don't like it. Welcome to Doctor Who Exactly, which is apparently not very exact this week. Okay, so strap yourselves in, lads, ladies, and whatever you want to call yourself nowadays. This is going to get experimental. Steven Moffat is a good writer. I know. He's got his detractors, he's got his bad sides, but to say anything else but Steven Moffat is a good writer would be an insult to the man's craft. You don't have to like everything he does. You don't have to like everything he does 100%. But, you know, give the man credit where it's due. When Steven Moffat took over Doctor Who, he made it very much his own. It has a very unique Steven Moffat feel. Now, okay, his series openers and his series finales, they are just, you know, regular Doctor Who in a way. It's like, it's a setup and there's a payoff. It's an introduction and there's a closing. It's always, in general, the same idea. It's not as much of a different concept as Russell T Davies did. It's not as much of a different concept as Crib Chibnall is doing. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. I'm just saying, in general, let's call them the schematics. The schematics of the series is pretty much the same. Now, where Steven Moffat has deviated, where these three have deviated, is with how they wrote the series as a showrunner. Russell T Davies mostly stayed with the series openers and the series finales. He's only written the one episode, as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm an absolute dingus, that it was just an episode in the series, and that was series 4, episode 9, Midnight, which is an absolute corker. We should watch that soon. Anyway, Chris Chibnall, on the other hand, wrote nearly all of the first half of series 11 with the 13th Doctor. Not a big fan of that because it made it abundantly clear that he may write a good episode here or there, but on the whole, it made it all too samey, too generic, too easy, too level. Not a good level either. Say what you will, maybe you're happy with that Chris Chibnall is doing things differently than Steven Moffat, but that's not my point. My point is, I'm getting to it. When Steven Moffat ran the show, and he wrote episodes in between, they were some very, very different episodes from the usual fanfare. This is not saying that Russell T Davies' Midnight does not turn the entire concept of Doctor Who on its head. No. Steven Moffat, aside from his series openers and his series finales, wrote some most outlandish Doctor Who during his own tenure. Think about it. He wrote Kill Hitler, which, aside from the outrageous title, is a very spectacle of an episode introducing River Song in a roundabout fashion. He also wrote Extremis, which is about a simulation where the Doctor realizes he's a simulation, and how a fictional Doctor deals with the idea of being a fictional Doctor. And then he wrote this episode, Listen, which is about fear. In general, it's about fear, and whether or not the bugbears we carry with us are real, can be real, and whether or not the Doctor might be just a delusional maniac. Welcome to Doctor Who, exactly. Kind of. So the Doctor hypothesizes that there might be, aside from the most evolved creature in attack, the most evolved creature in defense, that there is also a creature the most evolved in hiding. And this terrifies him. That's the plot. He tries to find a spooky ghost. His companion, Clara Oswald, in the meantime, she has a date with Danny Pink, a co-worker at the school she teaches at. It's not going well. Danny is a veteran of war, and he's seen some shit, man. And he gets agitated when she makes assumptions, and she gets frustrated because, her life's mental with the Doctor. That's her plot here, really. And then she gets grabbed by the Doctor by her sleeves and like, come on, Clara, we've got to do a thing. I'm seeing ghosts. Except he doesn't see ghosts. So he makes Clara take the TARDIS psychological circuits and psychic circuits, and she travels back into time to when Danny Pink was an orphan. This is unintentional. It was supposed to be Clara's youth, but because she got a phone call off of him, there's a whole thing where the Doctor walks around an orphanage and he makes a midnight guardsman absolutely crazy by making him paranoid, by stealing his coffee and vanishing without a trace like he's Batman. And Clara's talking to what's presumably a young Danny Pink, except his name is Rupert. Rupert is actually an okay name. If your name is Rupert, that's okay. Clara tries to comfort little Rupert, but, at one point, a figure has snuck into the room, and they don't know what it is. And Steven Moffat has gone onto Twitter and has said it was just a lad in a mask. Thanks, Steven Moffat. Yeah. So, the point is that the Doctor rocks up and he's like, oh yeah, I'm the Doctor. Fear is a superpower. It gives you adrenaline. You can run faster. You're stronger, and etc. etc. It's a good speech. It's a good, comforting way of showing that this Doctor, despite the fact he's gone all grey and nasty to everybody else, that his bedside manner with the tiddlywinks is still pretty good. He likes kids. The Doctor likes kids, and he comforts kids. He's not the nasty grandpa. He's the weird uncle you have. That's a good description of most Doctors, really. Weird uncle. So they convinced this figure, who's a kid in a mask, thanks Steven Moffat, to leave while their backs are turned. But it is somewhat tense, and it's a good way of building up the Doctor, who's still being portrayed as like I said before, a cantankerous, nasty old man. But it's shown that he at least still has a kind heart towards children. Clara gets dropped off at the restaurant where she left Danny Pink after they had a fight, and she tries to make amends. And then they kind of do, until Danny starts to pick apart her story because she's not wearing a coat. She mentions his real name, Rupert, not Danny Pink, and they get into another fight. And then an astronaut shows up. Because, yes. So, Clara's mad at the Doctor because she thinks the Doctor is this astronaut, and the astronaut takes his helmet off, and it's Danny Pink's future grandson, great-grandson, Orson Pink. Yeah. So the Doctor's apparently blocked this guy from the end of the universe, the end of time itself.
Meanwhile, at the end of the universe, also meanwhile at the end of the universe,
Oh,
Bugger, my tea's gone cold.
Also, meanwhile, at the end of the universe, still, tables for two days.
But the curse machine.
Because he was an experimental time traveler. Because that's what humans do. They find the impossible boundary and they try to poke holes at it. Because that's a clever thing to do. I'm beginning to think we might all be suicidal. Looking at the current scenario of the real world, we might all be suicidal. So the Doctor takes Clara and Orson back to his future space pod in the end of time. The heat death of the universe. There's nothing out there but inky blackness and shades of purple. And there's still noises outside. Creaking. The Doctor equates it to stuff like creaking of a house and the pipes and the heating, and it's good. This is good. It's a good scene setting. Not Danny. Orson is afraid of opening the door. He's written on the door, "Do not open the door," despite it being locked. So there is a sense of terror. The Doctor makes Clara retreat to the TARDIS as he opens the door to the heat death of the universe, and he passes out because apparently even Time Lords need oxygen. Orson saves him, and they end up by Clara using the psychic circuits one more time on an unknown planet. She hides underneath a bed where a boy is crying, and this is the retcon. It's ancient Gallifrey. This is the first time Gallifrey was shown in a modern series that wasn't in the end of time, and it's also like the first series after the Day of the Doctor. And to immediately go back into a sense of prehistory of the Doctor, of the show itself at the very least, and to showcase a young Doctor. This does not bother me really, to be honest. Silly voiceover. This does not bother me in the slightest. Not really. Not really. I mean, do I think this works? Personally, it doesn't work for me. But I can see if it works for other people, but I don't gel with this. It's Clara making a stable time loop, using the exact same speech that the Doctor gave to Rupert Pink, the young boy Danny. Like, fear is a superpower, don't be afraid. Fear is a constant companion. I can see why this would be written this way, and how you could emphasize the Doctor's character in this like this, but it really doesn't work for me. It really doesn't. This is supposed to be the moment that the episode hinges on, and it doesn't click. Not for me, at least. Silly voice back on. So the Doctor wakes up and he says, "Some tyrants are perverting the course of human history." This is the second time he said that in the history of Doctor Who. And Clara manages to convince him not to step outside and, infringe on his own timeline. Because why would you? And they travel back, they rescue Orson from the end of time, they place him back in his own timeline, and Clara hugs the Doctor. The Doctor's like, no hugging, I'm against hugging. Because that's what the Doctor sounds like. And she reconciles with Danny Pink. I have, like I said, a newfound appreciation for this episode. It still doesn't work for me. I don't mind watching it, but when the essential emotional moment is not clicking, sliding into place for me, then what you're left with is an episode where everything is hypothesis, everything is maybe, everything is ambiguous, and this is not bad. It's not really all that bad that there's an episode without an evil scheme, but it makes the episode lack a bit of punch in a certain fashion, to me personally. And it really doesn't help that the ambiguity has been taken away by Steven Moffat on the Twitters. Thanks, Steven Moffat. I'm just being a moany little myrtle. I apologise. This is by no means me saying that this episode is the worst episode of Doctor Who ever, because it's not. It's not even Series 8's worst episode, I think. That's probably Time Heist. But to say that if I were in charge of Doctor Who night in my house, and I am, I would not voluntarily put this episode on. I'm sorry. So please let me know in the comments down below if this is good. Maybe you have some links to some dodgy sites that you want to use and you're a bot, in which case I respect your hustle. We're gonna do something a little bit different. It's Doctor Who, but not as you know it. But we are gonna see the first Doctor.